Hello, thank you very much for joining us wherever you are. Good afternoon. This is The Pulse coming to you live from our studios here at Kukumlimli on digital address GA09925539. In our top stories this hour, second-year student dies at AYOKO Methodist SHS in bizarre circumstances. We are live in the Eastern region. Also here on The Pulse, mother allegedly kills 2 children at Tema, and she admits feeding them rat poison because their father will not provide for their needs. Later here on the program, police in the Savannah region arrest 1 more person in connection with the murder of the 90-year-old woman at Kafaba. And later here on the program, as Muslims celebrate EID UL-ADHA, the festival, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Baumia announced his plans to improve education in the Zongo communities. We have details of all these stories and more in the next 2 hours. Please be my guest.
The Pulse is brought to you by
Stop Cough from Ernest Chemists.
Thank you very much for joining us here on The Pulse. My name is Ernest Minu. Let's settle for the details of the stories now. And police in Tema have arrested a mother suspected to have poisoned her 2 children. The children, a 2-year-old girl and 8-month-old boy, were reportedly fed rat poison by their mother. The 28-year-old suspect, Abigail Adubai, is said to have told the police she could not cater for the children because their father was not providing their needs. Tema Region Crime Officer ACP Paul Frimpong narrates exactly what happened.
It was yesterday 5:30 p.m. that we had information to that effect. So some of our officers went to the scene and noticed that there were 2 children on the bed who were pulled when to the touch. And they also realized that they were foaming from the mouth. So they asked of the mother, and they got to know of the mother, and the mother said the children had fallen sick the previous week and had taken them to hospital, and that the medicines that the hospital gave them, that is what he was giving to them. And the night prior to the incident, they had given them some of the medicine, but when they woke up, he realized that the children were still sleeping and they were cold. So she had to go and tell the mother, and the mother asked 2 of the children, elder children, to come and see what was happening. So when they got there, they also realized that the children were dead. So that was what he was telling us. But when we saw that they were foaming from the mouth, we had suspicion that probably they might have taken some poisonous substance. So all the substances that we suspected to be medicine or whatever it is were taken by the police for further investigation. The 2 children were taken to the police hospital. The doctor testified that they were dead and that they have been put into the morgue for autopsy and further investigations.
Now, this will be a crime of what proportion? For the criminal code, where does it fall?
Yes. Currently, we are considering the crime of murder. That is what we're investigating. So if by the conclusion of our investigation, some other offense is what comes out, or if no offense has been committed, then we will take it from there. But currently, we are investigating the case of murder.
Is it normal for a mother to just act the way she did?
Well, I'm not in a position to say that, but that is her story. She hasn't confessed well that she poisoned her. So we're still investigating in our custody, Our officers are going to the hospitals we allege we send the children to confirm or otherwise, and then we'll take it from there.
Where is the lady currently?
She's in our custody.
Okay. In Accra or in Tema?
In Tema.
So that is the police's own account of what happened, but correspondent in Tema, Kwame Yanka, who's been to the Mahia community where the incident happened, joins me via Zoom with more on this. Kwame, you have been to the community interacting with members there. What have you gathered?
Well, Ernest, members of the community are so shocked to learn of this incident. What they tell me, Abigail has been with them in the last 3 years, and but they are shocked to learn of this as at what happened yesterday. But according to them, in the last few days, her behavior has changed, and they believe she's joined some members of the community who are somehow influencing her behavior. So they are, some are surprised it happened, others are not, in a sense that they believe she's being influenced by the people she's working with or moving with at this point. I've also been speaking to a priestess in the neighborhood by name AYOKO Aponti. She relates to Abigail somehow of a mother, because according to her, from childhood, she's known Abigail from childhood, and she takes Abigail as her daughter. So every now and then, Abigail comes to her if she is in need of anything. She's able to help one way or the other, financially or materially, one way or the other. She's able to help Abigail. But for yesterday, when she came in, she didn't come with her children. So it got the priestess worried, and she asked where her children were, Abigail's children were. She was unable to give the exact location. And from the responses, the priestess suspected that there was something wrong, for which she asked that Abigail be held at the priestess' house. And then some neighbors sent to Abigail's end to check what was really happening to her children. Lo and behold, the neighbors went there, but came back crying, just to tell the priestess that, well, the unexpected had happened and the children were foaming, for which the priestess asked that Abigail be arrested, hence her arrest.
Now, you've also been speaking to the community people. Do they tell you that prior to this incident, she had made pronouncements that sort of gave the indication that she was frustrated and that probably she could engage in something as tragic as this?
Well, Ernest, yes, that's part of the hearsay, but it could be confirmed at the end of investigations. Well, according to them, Abigail in the last few days has been, one way or the other, jokingly been saying that, well, she wishes to get rid of her children because, according to them, she is taking care of the children. The father in question is nowhere to be found, so she's just putting, things together to ensure that the babies or the children survive on daily basis. So it's somehow of a burden on her shoulders, and she's bearing all the pain and whatever she could do in her capacity to take care of the children. So she would want to get rid of the children. So that's why I'm saying that some are not surprised that this one has come in. They took as a joke. They took, when she started making such pronouncements, as a joke, only for them to learn yesterday that it had indeed happened.
And for the father of these children who are now dead, sadly, has he shown up? Do you know him? Do the community people know who he is? And if at all, the claims that he's not taking care of the children, there's any truth in that?
Okay, well, Ernest, well, this yet to be established in the sense that the father in question does not live in the community with them. So Abigail does everything in her bit to take care of these children. And the man, I'm told, lives in a different community. So Abigail, takes care of these children at the Mahia, I should say.
As our Tema region correspondent, Kwame Yanka, following up on this rather tragic story and bringing us some more detail on this. But what will make a mother take the lives of her own children? We've been speaking to consultant psychiatrist Dr. Emmanuel Dodoye, and he spoke to Roland Walker on the AM show on the possibilities as far as this issue is concerned? Listen.
I mean, this all points towards one condition. I mean, that means they have an impaired judgment. Looking at this case, this woman obviously does not show any remorse of her actions. And she may not even think that it is wrong for what she did, because just like in the case of Charles Entry, he actually said that going to prison is going to delay him from becoming a president. Now he's going to spend some time in prison before, when he comes out, he becomes the president. So this was an obvious impairment in judgment. So looking at this woman, and I think I have read somewhere, I think on Ghana Web or so, that she had made mention that she will kill the children, days before this happened. So she obviously showed signs of mental illness even before this happened. And in this case, I understand no attempt was made to cover her tracks. So she did not kill them and hide them, or she did not kill them and, she didn't even realize she can be prosecuted for, what she did. So basically, she does not understand the implications of her actions. So this woman has an impaired judgment. And we can see this condition commonly in schizophrenia. It can happen in some mood disorders, but largely schizophrenia, where people have impaired thinking or impaired thinking process. And that is what I see here. I've not seen her, I've not assessed I cannot make a diagnosis. But from the short video I see, this is a woman who does not know the implications of her actions, because she has impaired ability to judge whether, this is right or wrong. I've had a similar case in the hospital where the woman actually killed the baby because he said the baby was crying too much. So she only used a rope to tie the head of the baby just to stop crying. And the baby died. So these things are common. And until we invest in mental health care, we screen for mental health conditions like this. Because from the report, this lady had symptoms, which we saw earlier, but nobody thought she needed attention. It goes down to how mentally illiterate. So we have something called mental health literacy. As a country, our mental health literacy is very low. So when people show obvious signs of mental illness, we don't realize, we don't pick it up to even help them. It's quite unfortunate that the first thing we think we should do is to arrest her and send her through the criminal procedure. But I think we have gone this road before. Like I said, a woman killed her 5 children. We were all announcing to look for her, to arrest her because she's committed murder. And she also died by suicide. These are because she was mentally ill. The thinking normally is, if the world is so bad, so cruel to me like this, probably it is worse for my children. So let me send the children to heaven first. Then I will follow them. So we need to understand some of these things. And I really do not think anybody deserves to be punished for being sick. If this woman is assessed and found out to be mentally ill, then we cannot punish her. I think we should realize as a state we have failed her for not keeping her alive to save those 2 children.
Now, if we've made inferences to past incident, how is the weaknesses or the absence or lapses we have in our psychosocial support systems one of the precursors for some of these things that we're seeing?
Yes, thank you very much. Because the first challenge is that, do people around know what mental illness is?
Very sad developments then. We are following up on this. We'll bring you more in our subsequent bulletins. But there's another sad story that I want to bring you now. JoyNews is learning that a second-year student of the AYOKO Methodist SHS in the Eastern region has died. The female student is said to have collapsed while writing an exam yesterday and was pronounced dead at the hospital. Correspondent Maxwell Kudeko has been following up on this incident and joins me via Zoom. Maxwell, thank you very much for your time here on the Pulse. Do we know, is it clear what is the cause of death?
Well, it is not clear exactly what caused the death of this young, beautiful Jennifer Doku, who is 18 years of age. Jennifer was pronounced dead on arrival at the St. Joseph Hospital in Koforidua, Efiduase. Now, sources tells us that on Tuesday, Jennifer reported to her mistress that she is suffering from severe headache. So she was given first aid at the sick bay in the school and never reported back to the headmistress whether she's recovered from the headache or not. So yesterday, when they were writing their exams, that's a literature paper, we were told that Jennifer collapsed. So her peers and school teachers around tried to resuscitate her, but it came to naught. So she was rushed to the St. Joseph Hospital in Koforidua, but Jennifer was pronounced dead on arrival. We are told that Jennifer used to be one of the most favorite singers in school. She was a member of the school choir, and then she was very lively, full of life, always smiling even at the greatest provocation. So Jennifer was pronounced dead. It is not clear what caused her early demise, but hospital authorities or health officials at the St. Joseph Hospital are yet to commence a postmortem or autopsy on the body to determine what caused the death. Because she died on arrival, it has become a police case. So before I joined you online, headmaster of the school, Mr. Frank Eya Kumsin, was or is currently in the conversation with the Ghana Police Service. In fact, he is in a meeting with the Fijian Police Command together with the parents of the deceased. Now, the police is here to ascertain exactly what happened before the young lady passed on. So presently, young Jennifer Doku is no more.
Maxwell, quite detailed information there, but I'm wondering, the Ghana Education Service has released a guideline for schools that are done with examination on how they can allow their students to go home. Has the school recorded a case of COVID-19, or are some people suspected of having the virus? And I don't know how this guideline affects them.
We cannot connect the death to coronavirus. School authorities informed us that the second-year students are supposed to leave campus today. I think their last paper was written yesterday. So if you check most of the lorry station, you see that a lot of students are trooping in the station to board bus to their various destinations. So ideally, second-year students are supposed to leave campus by close of today. So it is not readily connected to coronavirus. We can't say that. We are waiting for the autopsy, or as it were, postmortem from the hospital. But what I can report clearly is that we are confidently informed that Jennifer complained of headache on Tuesday to her mistress. She was treated, she was given some first aid drugs. She went and never reported to the school authorities or the mistress whether she was okay or not. Until yesterday, when she collapsed at the exams hall and was rushed to the hospital when she was pronounced dead. It is not clear as to whether the death is connected to COVID-19 or not. But I can also not speak to a clear-cut rules for discharging students or second-year students who finished their exams yesterday.
That is fine, Maxwell, because the Ghana Education Service has released, a guideline to help the schools. But I'm wondering, quickly, just before you let you take leave of us, what is the mood on campus? And you've been monitoring the schools. As far as COVID-19 is concerned, how did they observe the protocols? What kind of reports from the Eastern region?
Well, if you check the video I brought earlier at the AYOKO Methodist, you realize that the safety protocols are being observed religiously in most of the schools. The exam centers, especially the exam halls, have been the desks have been arranged in a manner that is difficult. All of us who have written exams will testify that in the exam hall we observe proper social distance so that you cannot pull your neck and copy your fellow. So the distance is very clear at the various exam centers. If you do not have nose masks, you will not be allowed to enter the exam hall to write the exams. And almost all the exam halls, most of the halls have Veronica bucket with running water. So with regards to the hygiene protocols, it is being observed religiously in most of the schools that we have monitored so far in the Eastern region.
Thank you very much. That's Maxwell Kudeko. He is our Eastern region correspondent, bringing us some more on the story from AYOKO Methodist Senior High School and generally the adherence to safety protocols as far as COVID-19 is concerned. Let's go up north. Police in Savannah region have arrested one more person in connection with the murder of a 90-year-old woman at Kafaba. A priest, with the help of the community and some members, allegedly lynched the frail woman on suspicion she was a witch. But the incident has led to widespread public condemnation, prompting the IGP to dispatch a specialist homicide team to fish out the perpetrators. Savannah region correspondent Isaac Nonya has been following this and joins us on the line with more. Isaac, we know of a latest arrest. Tell us about this person and how connected he or she is with this incident.
Yes, I will speak. The suspect has just the risk to the Savannah Regional Police Command, and the team, the police commander, with a group of criminal investigation officers, are just about taking a side to interrogate the victim. I mean, the suspect. Okay. We got here some few minutes ago, and then in between 4 to 5 hours, the victim was on her way with the escort team. We are told that the suspect happens to be the granddaughter of one of the daughters of the deceased. Latifa Bumaya is a young lady of 32 years. She's plain black complexion. She arrives here in her long dress with a headgear, and suddenly she was taken into the police commander office for interrogation. So for now, that's what we know about Latifa. I mean, the suspect that has been brought in for interrogation.
Is this the lady seen in the video with the whip, afflicting wounds on this 90-year-old woman who is now deceased?
Yes, that's the information that has come out so far. Then, the other two ladies with the woman who were doing that, it has to do with a background where we were told the family initially rejected this deceased woman. I mean, the children, they all left based on allegation and stigmatization. And this grandchild equally left the grandma. She was there as a maid, doing cooking and doing other things for her. So once she left and this thing happened, it was like a confirmation of the suspicion they themselves as children and community members have leveled against the disease.
Thank you very much. Isaac Nonya is our Savannah region correspondent, and he's been following this rather sad story of the 90-year-old woman who was lynched by the community led by a priestess in that Kafaba community of the Savannah region. You're watching The Pulse with me, Ernest Minu. We're taking a short break. When we return, we'll tell you about what the Vice President has been saying about EID UL-ADHA, advising the Muslim youth to stay away from violence, but also announcing plans to improve education in the Zongo communities. Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. Now, a report by the Statistical Service says 27% of children scheduled for a vaccination since March 16 missed it due to COVID-19 related reasons. The report noted nearly half of households with at least one child below 5 years was due for a scheduled vaccination. Now, reasons assigned include fear of getting infected with COVID-19 at the various health facilities, and in some cases, vaccines were simply not available. We'll delve more into this shortly, but first, my colleague Justice Bedu traveled to the Afram Plains and brought us this report.
Moses Ganke is one of the country's frontline health workers, going at it alone in one of the places where many of his mates would rarely go.
Talking about the challenges, in fact, if I want to start, I can say I may not even finish.
This is the island community of Helen Haji. It has no electricity, no potable water, and no mobile telephony network. The only clinic here was built by the villagers themselves. Moses recalls how the lack of refrigerator for medicines affects the work that he does.
Just last month, I did 5 deliveries. During delivery, you have some emergencies or complications, and those drugs that you can use to ameliorate those situations are supposed to also to be kept under coating or in the refrigerator as well. But where is the fridge? The deliveries, you have to do it because you don't have enemies. By the time you say you are referring them, they might either deliver on the bank or on the lake.
He has to travel on the sometimes turbulent Afram River using a boat, a journey that sometimes could take up to 2 hours to the nearest community that has electricity every day to store medicines like vaccines.
The facility we are not having engine boats, so I have to rely on people who are having. They don't even have commercial boats that apply to where I store the vaccines. So I have to be begging them, making arrangements. So by the time they are done, it's almost getting to see something. I am appealing to the authorities, the government, Ministry of Health, Ghana Health Service, and benevolent individual or Ghanaians. This one I'm not just appealing, I'm begging. In fact, I don't know if I should be on my knee, but maybe it will disturb your recordings. Otherwise, I will be on my knee for them to come to our aid to save these innocent children.
Moses' story is like that of many health workers in remote communities across the country. He is hoping that something changes about that soon. Justice Bedu, JoyNews, Helen Haji in the Afram Plains.
Now, international NGO with focus on child development World Vision has been carrying out similar studies, and we've been joined on Zoom by their health technical program manager, who is also a public health specialist, Irabna Kweiba Dazi. Thank you very much, Madam Dazi, for your time here on The Pulse. First of all, let me take your reaction to the Statistical Service report that 27% of children scheduled for vaccination since March 16 missed it. Are you surprised?
No. Good afternoon to your cherished listeners. And I want them to keep their dial on JoyNews because we really give them the best in news and the best in everything they have to know.
Thank you very
much. I am not surprised at all because COVID-19, it's coming with a lot of repercussions in our health system, and we really have to see into the future and act fast on it. Per our studies that we have conducted and our visits in the rural communities that we work in and in the remote communities, we have had the same thing. There have been several times we have gone to the health facility and it has been closed down. After some investigations, we noticed that the health workers don't have enough PPEs to work with. Some of them have gotten infected, so the other staff that are part of the contact tracing are under quarantine, awaiting results. So I'm not surprised at all with this data that is coming from the Ghana Statistical Service, and I'm happy that we have this results in time, and it will give us a lot of opportunity to start working hard to address the repercussions before it gets too late.
What are the consequences of missing such deadlines for children and the effect on infant mortality, for instance?
Yes, considering the effect on infant mortality, it's really high because already Ghana, we have a high infant mortality rate. We were not able to meet our Millennium Development Goals that just ended, and now we are working with Sustainable Development Goals indicators that as a country we are supposed to meet. Per World Health Organization standards, we are also lacking behind in our indicators for neonatal in our indicators for reducing neonatal mortality and reducing infant mortality. Currently, we have 57 per 1,000 live births that are lost yearly, and also out of every 24 children, we have one dying before reaching the age of 1. So the impact on children healthcare in the health system is really high, and we have to look at it and work very hard, provide all the necessary resources that are needed. Now, I would want us to look at the health workforce and also the health financing. We would notice that COVID-19 pandemic has come with a lot of impact in these areas. The health workforce that were working with us in all the other pandemics that we have, like malaria, HIV, malnutrition, cholera, diarrhea, and everything, they are the same health workers we are using for the COVID-19 pandemic. In this case, we see that our health workforce would be under a lot of pressure, and we might not get them to deal with issues efficiently, effectively, as they are supposed to do, because we already had a lot of shortage in the doctor to patient ratio and in the nurse to patient ratio. As a country, our doctor to patient ratio is 1:8,600, and our patient to nurse ratio is 1:565 per the Ghana Health Service Report 2016. And it hasn't changed that much from then till now. And as it stands now, some of these health workers are also getting infected with COVID-19. And as a result, most of the CHIPS compounds in the rural communities are being closed down because they don't have adequate PPEs to work with, and they don't also want to risk their lives. Now, coming to immunizations, we used to leverage very much as a country on outreach centers, which has stopped because of the impact of COVID-19. Some of these outreaches that are being conducted in some districts are no more ongoing. We would have to look at that system, equip the health workers enough with the PPEs, let them go back to the communities and conduct the immunizations. Otherwise, we might have increase in the number of children that are supposed to have the immunization, and we would go back into the fact that we are having a lot of children who are not immunized. If these children are not immunized, we know the repercussions. There are some children that are going to die from measles. We are going to have polio outbreak, as we already also have some incidents of polio in the country.
Yeah. And that's very interesting, because I was coming to the other areas of health as far as children are concerned. We've looked at the immunization, but also malnutrition is also another area which I believe that you have been considering. What have you found in that area as well?
Yes, in malnutrition, we have also found that a lot of children are not having adequate feeding that they are supposed to get. When you look into the Ghana statistical reports that they just shared, it was very evident that about 56% of families were not able to provide the 3 square meals that they are supposed to provide. Some of them were also reducing the amount of food that they were feeding their children with. Some of these children in the rural communities and the urban slums also leverage very much on the school feeding program to sustain them during their lunch and stuff like that. Now we have our schools closed down, and these children might not have enough food at home. So it would lead to increased malnutrition in this area. Now, when we look at our health financing also, a lot of finances that should have gone into supporting all these malnutrition policies and other things that the Ghana Health Service were running, all these funds are going to support COVID-19. So it means that we are lacking behind the funds that we have to support the already existing health system. Now, malnutrition is not just a standalone. Malnutrition affects children. Malnutrition increases malaria. Malnutrition increases diarrhea. And all these other pandemics are going to be affected as we have issues of malnutrition going up.
Now, I want us to look at practically how we can address this issue. And I want to read some of the reasons given for missing the vaccination. The first one, which I already said, is affecting people being afraid of getting infected with coronavirus. The other is the fact that there are no vaccines available in some instances. And in other instances, you find that some of the centers have been turned into management centers for coronavirus. In those instances particularly, what will be your advice? Because we're still dealing with COVID-19. It has not left us.
Yes. So in that instance, what I would advise is that we should leverage very much on our outreach centers that we used to have. These outreach centers were doing very good if you go to the rural areas and the rural communities, because for some communities, they don't have a CHIPS compound there. They don't have a health facility there. So it's the outreach that was supporting them in the immunization. Okay. So if we can equip health workers with the adequate PPEs to go out to have the outreaches, it will be very important. Again, the government would have to make sure that a lot of financing is going into the immunization, malaria, malnutrition, and all other existing pandemics before COVID-19 came on board, so that we don't have all our attentions on COVID-19 and leave out on the others. Otherwise, it would also be disastrous. So we should also look at financing the immunization units very well, to give them enough funds to procure more immunization, so that the facilities that have run out of this immunization, we can replenish them for them to go on with the immunization. Because as we see in the data now, about 50% of children under 5 have lost their immunization schedules per the Ghana Statistical Service reports that has been shared.
Absolutely. And we're hoping to get the Ghana Health Service to help us understand what they're doing to bridge this gap, because we can't have all these children miss the deadline for the year to just run dry. Definitely, there'll be the need for some rescheduling in order to make time for these children and give them the opportunity to do so. I want to thank you for your time. That's Irabna Dadzi. She is the health manager with World Vision Ghana and also a public health specialist, joining us with some analysis and education on this research done by the Ghana Statistical Service and also World Vision. Now, away from that, persons below 18 years will no longer be allowed to ride tricycles in the Asokore-Mampo municipality of the Ashanti region. The measure is part of a new bylaw by the local assembly to regulate operations of the passenger rickshaws known locally as Pragya. Now, Municipal Chief Executive Ali Dusedu told an assembly meeting volunteers will be deployed to ensure riders comply with traffic regulations. Here's a report by Ohim Interior.
Asokore-Mampo Municipal accounts for about 90% of commercial tricycles in Greater Kumasi. Though statistics are not readily available, authorities say they are alarmed by increasing rate of road crashes involving Pragya. Alhaji Seidu tells JoyNews the new bylaws also limits the number of passengers to 2 instead of 3 as pertains presently.
If you are not up to 18 years of age, you cannot ride. 2, you should not take more than 2 people, 2 passengers. You lose the privilege of riding Pragya if you take someone on the shoulder of the rider. You should follow traffic protocol. You should not be seen to be overtaken. You also said that whoever is riding Pragya you should appear with substance. You shouldn't just be in any form of address to just be there. On this matter, we made it a categorical statement in the bylaws. So these are some of the things. If you are found culpable, it will be dealt with. I wouldn't be on the street to stop them. I wouldn't be on the street to arrest. But then the law enforcement agencies will be on the street.
The Road Traffic Act prohibits commercialization of motor and tricycles, but the MCE dismisses suggestions the Assembly's action condones illegality.
We are not legalizing illegality. It has come to stay. I mean, look at the numbers. If you have about 10,000 Pragya in Ashanti region, and for that matter, Kumasi, then you can get 9,000 of it is within Asukari Mampong. Whether you like it or not, they are on the street. But once you recognize that the same people we are serving are the same people patronizing their services, if that happens, what you need to do is that you regulate the activity, at least until a policy statement is brought from the Ministry of Transport, banning them. Assembly, and for that matter, Askoromampo cannot just sit in Askoromampo and issue our word that we are banning you. I mean, it will come with a consequence. But when the Transport Ministry comes out with something like that, telling us that no, you can't operate, then you also do it within our context.
From Kumasi, for Joy News, Ohimi Interior reporting.
Now, from the Ashanti region, let's come back here to Accra. Beneficiaries of the Young Africa Work Project, an initiative of the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, NBSSI, and the MasterCard Foundation, say they are poised to contribute their quota to national development as well as train youth in their communities so they can also have meaningful sources of livelihood. They spoke to JoyNews after they were presented with starter packs from the Rebecca Foundation, headed by the First Lady, Rebecca Kufuor. Hannah Odami was there and filed this report.
According to a June 2020 Mundi Index report, the youth in Ghana represent 57% of the country's population, yet many of them are not gainfully employed. One of them is Benedicta Nuwani, a JHS graduate who's been unsuccessful with getting employed after school. Today, she received startup materials to enable her begin her own business. This was made possible by the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, the MasterCard Foundation, and the Rebecca Foundation. Government has, since it came to power, introduced several youth enhancement programs such as NACOP and Youth in Afforestation to deal with youth unemployment. Persons between 18 and 35 years who qualify for the program are offered skills training as well as easy access to market. The program is assisting the youth across the country, and in the Greater Accra region, 5 beneficiaries who have undergone 6 months training were given sewing machines by the Rebecca Foundation. The Executive Director of MBSSI, Kosi Yankee Aye, was optimistic. 39,000 youths will be employed in Ghana in the next 2 years through the program.
The investment from the MasterCard Foundation to the National Board for Small-Scale Industries over the past year has exceeded over 100 million Ghana cedis. And this partnership and funding is just to support women and the youth. And over 80 to 90% of it would go into funding and supporting the programs. Many a times, most programs just support the administrative purposes. But there's an intentional effort to ensure that all the funds will go towards supporting and helping the youth and the women of this country to do better and to prosper.
Benedicta, after receiving her sewing machine, tells JoyNews getting involved in the project has enabled her dream again.
What I will do now is have my own designing firm, yes, fashion design firm for myself, and then to help other young ones, those who cannot afford like I was, to help them to become who I am today.
First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo asked for private sector support in creating employment and entrepreneurship program for the youth to facilitate economic growth.
We need the private sector and other bodies to support youth employment and entrepreneurship. We all know that youth unemployment has the potential to create serious social consequences. It could lead to social exclusion and unrest. Investing in decent job creation, in education and training opportunities for our young people will create a more prosperous and stable society. That is why we need better collaboration and partnerships involving us all.
For JoyNews, I am Hannah Wadani.
Now, Muslims in Techiman in the Borno East region observed this year's EID UL-ADHA celebrations under strict adherence to COVID-19 safety protocols. The Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah sect ensured that individuals attend the Eid prayers with their private praying mat in order to observe the prescribed social distancing as well as control the spread of coronavirus. Correspondent Anas Sabit was at the Eid celebration and filed this report.
Amid strict adherence to the safety COVID-19 protocols, the Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah sect observed this year's EID UL-ADHA festival at the JAKO School Park in Techiman. Municipal Chief Imam of Aswaj, who led the prayer session, expressed satisfaction with the congregants' adherence to the protocols.
We spoke to them since about 1 week now. We've been speaking to them on radio, in our mosques, and so on. We've been telling them they should do it. So when they are coming, I saw that, let's say about 99% of them are wearing the nose mask. So, alhamdulillah, I think we are now doing well.
Imam Idrisu called on the people to stay away from political violence as we zoom into the electioneering season.
My message is that I don't want any time, if there is a problem, you see that they call Muslims have done this, they've gone to fight here and there. It is not good. So we should know that Ghana is our country. And we have nowhere than Ghana. We have no anywhere to go. Only Ghana will stay. So if the place remains peaceful, we should also be peaceful. But if we let some war start here through us, God will not forgive us.
For Malam Murtada Muhammad, who is part of the committee that ensured that the COVID-19 protocols are observed, he tells me that the Muslim community is now well informed with regards to the adherence to the safety protocols.
We had a committee that came here very early in the morning, and then they drew lines, making sure that everybody will kind of spread the mat or the prayer rag or the sajada in the line so that the self will be straight. And what also happened was that the committee made sure that whoever came, people were around to make sure that whoever came will observe the social distance by setting your sajada or your prayer rag apart from the other person. So I think it was very, very good. Emphatically, I will say that now the Muslim community is well informed about the COVID-19 social distancing protocol and any other protocol that was laid down by the president.
Some of the congregants who were happy with the conduct of the prayers were full of praise to the organizers of the Eid.
Al-Sunnah, Aswad, Techiman especially, they have done very, very well. Looking at the way they put the Veronica bucket and the mask, they ensure that everybody should observe it. So when you even come and you don't have it, they tell you, Master, wear your nose mask. You know, Ghanaians, sometimes somebody will wear it, but you put it on his neck. But I can see there are people there. The scouts, they are passing and say, Master, put on your nose mask. Yeah, I can see they have done well. They have done well.
Oh, the protocol, I think the imams need to be commended. They have done very well. When I was coming, I saw someone without the PPE, and then an elderly man told him to go home and get one just around here. And I believe that the imams have done well. even though you won't get 100%, but relatively they've done very good.
So this has been the situation here with the people here impressed with the conduct of this particular Eid from the Techiman Jako School Park. My name is Anas Sabit for Joy News.
And still on the Eid celebrations, Ghanaian Muslim leaders have charged young people in the Islamic faith to shun violence as the country prepares for the December 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections. One of the leaders is the Imam of Adama, Sheikh Redwan Muqtagu Abbas, who has been addressing Muslim youth during the presentation of some items to them on the occasion of EID UL-ADHA today. Nancy Emefa-Dradosi has more in this report.
One by one, they enter the central mosque dressed in their best clothes, and this time with face masks on. It's the new normal for these young Muslims as they observe COVID-19 protocols before entering the mosque for prayers. Almost 2 meters apart, these Muslims knelt on their mats, praying to Allah.
In our prayers, it is instructed that we should get closer to each other. Your shoulder should touch your shoulder of your brother. But in this situation, you have to ensure there's 2 meters between you and your brother.
Imam of Adama called on the youth to eschew violence ahead of the 2020 elections.
This is always where we have problems with our younger ones. The politicians, they only remember you, the youth, when it's election time. After the election, that is all. You have just become like a hoe. They used you to weed. After weeding, when it's time for harvesting, they just put the hoe aside. We don't want to be like that. We should let them know. And then before you be able to let them know you know your right, you should be well educated. If you are well educated, nobody will even approach you to come and go and do anything bad for him. So whenever any politician approach you to come and do some violent or act violently, tell him to go and bring his children fed to lead the exercise. This is my advice.
Unilever Ghana donated items including Unilever bar soap, thermometer guns, and face masks to members of the community to help combat the virus.
We are grateful to the company and the chief who has Sunlight, the company Sunlight, who has given out this, and then the chief Ni Obusokan, who also, I think, initiated it. We are so much grateful. They have given us, after all they have provided, after the prayers, there are some gifts they give out, soaps to send home. We are so much grateful.
Despite all the challenges the virus brought, there was also something to dance about.
And with the Zongo Development Fund and the Inner City and Zongo Ministry already yielding human and infrastructure development in Zongo communities, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has stated that the Akufo-Addo-led administration has by far cared for the interest of deprived communities than any other government in the recent history of the country. Speaking at a virtual Eid prayer at the forecourt of the GBC House Friday morning, Dr. Bawumia outlined the many interventions the administration has implemented in the inner cities, including scholarships for brilliant but needy students from deprived communities to study medicine, as some human-changing policies that are having real impact on lives that will otherwise be neglected. He also promised that the Akufo-Addo administration, if given the second term, will do more, including building 16 model SHS in Zongo communities as part of its program to improve livelihoods.
Your Eminence, a government that cares is a government that alleviates the suffering of its citizens during a crisis. And that is exactly what this government has done, and inshallah will continue to do during this crisis. we can say in all humility and without any equivocation that there really is no government in recent history that has paid as much attention to the development needs of the Zongo communities and put in place a vehicle to deliver those development needs as the government of His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. The President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo promised the people of the Zongo that he would establish the Zongo Development Fund if he got elected, by the grace of Allah. However, after winning the 2016 elections by the grace of Allah, President Akufo-Addo did not only fulfill the promise of establishing the Zongo Development Fund, but he also decided to go a step further by creating a ministry for Zongo and inner city development. Today, the Ministry for Zongo and Inner Cities Development, as well as the Zongo Development Fund, serve as dedicated government agencies addressing issues affecting the Zongos and inner cities, especially on education and infrastructure development. So this means that, inshallah, from now on going, the Zongos will always be catered for in every budget. This is the first time in history. Every budget we will have allocations for the Zongos. This year is an important year for our country, as we will be going to the polls in December. If Ghana is revered across the globe as a shining example of democracy in Africa, it is because of how we have generally conducted ourselves peacefully in previous elections. We have to maintain this enviable reputation, and it is important for all stakeholders to ensure that we maintain peace. We enjoy the peace we enjoy in this country. We in government have a responsibility to ensure that, and we pledge our commitment to that. I want to take this opportunity to appeal to the youth of the Zongos to reject being used as pawns to perpetuate political violence. Our communities no longer be a place where the violent-minded people will come and hire people to propagate their agenda. This must be a thing of the past. We are fortunate to have our father, the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Osman Nur Sharbatu, an icon of peace we can always draw inspirations from to eschew violence. I urge every Zongo youth to emulate the peaceful nature of our father wherever you are and ward against acts of violence. Regardless of your political affiliation, politics should not be a barrier between you and your fellow brother from the same community. The elections are a simple exercise of choosing worthy leaders who will ensure our inclusion in national policies, welfare, and our nation's development. It is not an exercise to divide us through violence.
Now, still on Eid al-Adha, some sheep and goat sellers at Aveno Market say the coronavirus pandemic has negatively affected their business. They say there's a reduction in the number of patrons who trooped to the markets during the celebration of Eid. Maxwell Adobah was at Aveno in our report.
Livestock really plays, a big role when it comes to the celebration of Eid al-Adha. More especially also because it is to commemorate Allah's command to Prophet Ibrahim when he tested his faith, his loyalty in him, and asked him to sacrifice his first son to him. Later, we know an angel directed a goat to Prophet Ibrahim, and he had to sacrifice, that goat. So if you're celebrating and commemorating Eid al-Adha, livestock plays an important role.
Eid is for obedience and sacrifice. Obedience in such a way that our Prophet Ibrahim have dreamt of sacrificing his son. But through his dream, and then he wanted to sacrifice his son, and then God gave him a ram. That is the obedience aspect. And then the sacrifice is the sheep, the animals that we are sacrificing to celebrate the Eid. So these animals we are saying we slaughter is to give to our family and then relatives. This is where we always meet in our senior brother's house to celebrate the Eid.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a sheep for my mom
and there's a holiday for Muslims.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're trying to celebrate it very nicely in the Muslims way.
How much are they going for? Is it what you expected?
Yeah, it's up to, we have some 2,005, 1,005, whatever. But if you have 1,000, you have to buy the one. You have to buy the 1,001. Yeah. If you want to buy 2,001, there are some people that can buy about 3,000. Some are buying cows and other things. But it seems we have to go for the sheep. Then we are trying to see. The prices are, somehow it's okay.
As you can see from the other side also, quite a number of people also gathered there doing business they're trying to buy. We were quite impressed by the numbers that we saw here. That one of the sellers I spoke to was actually telling me about how coronavirus has impacted the market, negatively impacted the market. And I was surprised to hear that in previous years you find a lot of people here, but the numbers have reduced, as the seller was telling me. Sir, you're welcome to JoyNews.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you were telling me earlier that you don't have a lot of people coming to the market like it used to be.
Yeah, the whole thing has spoiled. There's nothing in this system. We are just here since the day before yesterday up to now. They're not buying. We are just there. All of us we are standing. No one is coming to buy. If they come, they'll say the money is high. The money is high. The money is high. The safer too is very high. We can't bring the animals here. Everything is spoiling. Nothing is in the country.
Okay, so wait, how much are you selling this one, for instance? How much?
This one is 2,600.
2,600. Okay.
And this one is 2,800.
Okay.
Previously, last 4 years, it wasn't like this. We could get something like this, 1,005. The ones that we read that we are using, because they can't bring animals inside. This is the one we are rearing. So it's very expensive.
Wow. Wow. And the buyers are not willing to.
The buyers are not buying because it's too expensive. The buyers are not buying.
Let me speak to you. Sir, what's your name?
Arona Imoru.
Okay. Your brother is telling me that the market is not really too good like you've seen in previous years.
It's true. The market is not good. When I came here from since last 2 weeks, until now, I don't sell anything now.
Wow.
You see them? Nobody is buying it.
But I see a lot of people driving here. Some of them have parked their vehicles.
Like that. They will come and stand and ask it, but we won't buy. They say the thing is the money is too high. They say the government no pay them, so they don't have money to buy.
I pray that later in the day the market will be good for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Why are you pushing? Why are you pushing it too? Why are you pushing this too?
Because
why are you pushing it too?
They want to not go. Yeah.
They don't want to go. Why are you pushing them too? Should I help you?
Oh no, thanks.
Are they yours? Are they yours?
No.
So that was a report from Accra, from Avino right here. My colleague Max Oladoba brought us that. But from the Bono region, the East Regional, that's Bono East Region, Anasabit has been interacting with some of the sellers who are also complaining of low sales.
The Eid UL-ADHA is finally here. It is the second of 2 Islamic holidays celebrated worldwide and considered the holier of the 2. This afternoon we are here at the Techiman Sheep and Goat Market. We're here to find out from the sellers here how the market has been compared to same period last year. We want to know if the COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected most trading activities across the world, has also affected their businesses here at the Sheep and Goat Market. Join us as we do this quick interaction with the sellers here. First, we engaged the secretary to the Sheep and Goat Sellers Association of Techiman. Yaya Abubakar shares with me how the situation has been.
Not good as usual, because I think it may be the effect of the corona, the pandemic disease that has happened. So we have to manage. If you go to the market, you can see there are no buyers.
Others also share same sentiment with Yaya Abubakar. They all attributed their low sales to the COVID-19 pandemic. There is no money in the system as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and so we are experiencing low sales. A year ago by this time, business was booming, but this year things has changed. Asked how the pandemic is contributing to the low sales this year, Ibrahim Alidu had this to say. The COVID-19 has affected several businesses. people wish to buy the animals for the Eid, but they can't because they do not have the money. Per my interactions with these sellers, I noticed that the prices of these animals have skyrocketed compared to same period last year. Yaya Abubakar tells me that the closure of the borders contributed to the high cost of these animals this year.
Oh, it's true, the prices are higher, but it is not that we intentionally make the prices to be higher. The time we were used to going to Burkina Faso to buy the animals, to bring them here and rear them, those times the borders were closed, so it has affected us. So we are relying on the local breeds, which they are very costly. So that's our problem.
For Abdullah Musa, who is here to make sales all day, he currently has over 100 sheep and goats. However, the lockdown, according to him, contributed to the high cost of these animals, as several businesses were affected as a result of the pandemic.
1,008.
This goes for 1,800 cedis because the lockdown of the borders prevented us from going to Burkina Faso for the animals. One have to spend extra money before giving access. As it stands, most of these sellers at the Techiman Central Market will not be celebrating the Eid in a joyous mood as they did the previous year. This is why.
It started since Eid al-Fitr. We did not enjoy as usual, and this Eid al-Adha too, I think it will be the same, because there are no buyers. How can you enjoy? You wouldn't even be at home, leaving your animals at the market, so I don't think we are going to enjoy the Eid al-Adha.
So this has been the situation here at the Techiman Sheep and Goat Market. My name is Anas Sabit for JoyNews.
And here in the studio, my name is Ernest Menu. Happy Eid al-Adha, or Eid Mubarak, that's how they say it, to all our Muslim brothers. We're taking a short break. When we return, we'll bring you some stories on politics. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us here on The Pulse. Now, former local government and rural development minister, Professor Kwame Ahoy, has launched his book in which he shares details of how Ghana rejected a request by Ronald Reagan for the release of 400 Ghanaians to America. This was one of the demands from for the release of Rawlins's relative, Michael Susudis, arrested for espionage in the United States. Now, he read portions of his book titled Working with Rawlins.
The Americans then sent a signal to Accra that they were prepared to negotiate an exchange between Michael Susudis and their Ghanaian assets. The government agreed in principle to the negotiated exchange in a return signal to them. The negotiations began in a very bizarre fashion. The CIA sent down to us, through the U.S. Embassy in Accra, a list of almost 100 Ghanaians, including the names of some very prominent citizens, all of whom they claimed were their assets. They wanted to take out all these persons, as well as their spouses, their children, and their parents. The Americans provided their full details, including their addresses, their schools, in the case of the children, their workplaces, and various other particulars. They wanted to take these assets and their relations away to the USA by landing a C-130 military transport plane at the Tamale Airport to evacuate all of them in one flight. In all, about 400 Ghanaians were to be evacuated in the exercise. Ghana's counterintelligence unit went to work. They advised us to reject the proposal on 3 main grounds. One, the list clearly contained names of persons who could not possibly be CIA assets and was intended to destabilize Ghana's intelligence architecture. Two, the so-called assets acted as individuals. Their sins could not therefore be extended to their spouses, their children, and their parents. Three, the use of a C-130 military transport plane posed a grave security risk to Ghana. What if 500 U.S. Marines popped out of the plane and launched an attack on the country?
And of course, that's Professor Kwamina Ahoy there. You want to get a copy of the book. It has very interesting details, including how Rawlings managed to convince him to serve in his second term, despite early announcements of him retiring. Now, let's go on to Zoom now. We're going to have a conversation with our regional correspondents. They'll bring us some updates on the stories they've been following for us. It's a Friday. Let's go to the Central Region. Richard Kojinako joins us from the Central Region, from Cape Coast. Hello, Richard. Thank you very much for joining us here on The Pulse. You have been following the NDC running mate, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, because she started her campaign in that region. Tell us more, plus the stories you've been following for us. What is the update from there? Well, Richard, we seem to be having challenges with your sound there. If you can just correct that for us, we'll return to you on Zoom for you to bring us up to speed on all the stories you've been following for us this week from the Central Region, from Cape Coast. We'll touch base with our Volta Region correspondent, Ivy Setoji. She's also been following the COVID-19 restrictions in schools. As you know, they have started with the examination. There were some who tested positive in some schools. Ivy followed up to bring us some interviews. But what has become of the situation, especially now as the Ghana Education Service has announced that the Gold Track students in Form 2 can take a break now? How are the guidelines informing what they're doing as far as releasing the students to go home is concerned? We'll be bringing you that interview shortly. We'll also go to the Northern Region and speak to our correspondent from there. But let me go to the Volta Region. Ivy Satoji joins us from home. Hello, Ivy.
Hello, Ernest. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to have you. You brought us some stories this week. I am particularly interested in the stories from the various senior high schools. What's the update from there?
Okay, so right now the schools are observing the protocols as well, and then but parents and teachers as well as students are still, according to them, are still living in fear because they are still suspecting that there are more cases that
Terrible connection there to Ivy. Would correct that and have her back on the line on stream to give us some more update on the situation in the schools in the Volta region. Now, Ivy has been speaking to teachers, to some of the students themselves, as well as to parents who are worried about their wards. Now we know they can go home beginning next week. The Ghana Education Service has issued some guidelines to help the schools as they discharge the students for vacation. Gold Track students of Form 2. Let's go up north to Bono East precisely. Anas Sabit joins us via Zoom. Anas, thank you very much for joining us, and Eid Mubarak. You have to unmute, Anas, so I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Very soon I'll be taking a flight for my portion of the meat that you've been serving at home. But tell us about the stories you brought us this week, including how Muslims there are celebrating Eid UL-ADHA today.
First, let me speak a bit about a survey that was conducted by the Kintampo College of Health and Wellbeing in relation to Kintampo, the Kintampo municipality, and then their adherence to the safety COVID-19 protocols. In fact, the survey revealed that only 24% of the respondents adhere to the use of the nose mask. And this, according to health authorities within the municipality, is a huge challenge because, as it stands, it is the nose mask that is the surest way of getting ourselves prevented from getting the COVID-19 disease. And so authorities in Kintampo say the survey is going to be helpful because now they know how and where to tackle this particular pandemic. So that is the first one I want us to look at. And then I remember this week, somewhere last week, the finance minister read the budget, and then he missed to mention the DKM saga. Residents of affected customers of DKM held a press conference expressing their disappointment in the government for failing to capture their plight in the mid-year budget review. Then the former president, during the outdooring of his running mate, also made mention of paying these affected clients within 1 year when he returned to power. And we engaged some of the residents, of which most of them of the view that some of these statements are mere political talks aimed at scoring cheap political points. That is also one of the stories we tackled this week.
And very powerful soundbite you brought us in that story. A lot of the market women, very passionate. Some were quite happy, but weren't sure if this is really something they should bank their hopes on. But also on the voter registration exercise, which is ongoing, the Peace Council spoke, and they were not happy with the political parties not respecting the roadmap that they signed. Tell us a bit about that.
That was a story Precious followed. In fact, that was in Sunyani. It had to do with the book. I'll leave that for Precious to speak on. Finally, I would want to touch on the Eid celebrations. You know, today is the EID UL-ADHA, and so we stepped out there to speak with Muslims, especially as sellers at the goat and sheep market in Techiman, and most of them were very worried at their sales this time around. They say, comparing to same period last year, they made a lot of sales, but this year there are no buyers in the market.
And this seems to be the thing running through our checks in the regions. But you mentioned Precious. He joins us on the line. Precious, thank you for joining us on Zoom. This week, what were the major headlines from your region?
Ernest, we, as you already mentioned before Anas came in, it has to do with the electoral violence that has characterized the registration exercise in some part of the region, specifically in the Banda district, as well as the Doma Central constituency in the Bono region. Now, the Peace Council, they had a training program as it were, to continue the advocacy, continue training political parties and stakeholders as to the need to hold on to the peace that we've enjoyed as a country over the years. And the Peace Council specifically are not excited, and they are not happy with the kind of cooperation that they are getting from the political parties. And according to the Executive Secretary in the Bono region, Swal Abdullah Kwanda, now he is saying that the party seems to be going by their own set of rules, disregarding what the referee of the game and then the organizers of the game they've put out there. Now, parties go to the registration centers and they want to drag people that they suspect are not residents or are not Ghanaians from the queue and prevent them from registering. But that is not the procedure. You go through the challenge form so that everything will be done amicably, but that seems not to be happening. The Peace Council believes that if the parties and who are the key stakeholders continues to disregard and flout this arrangement, then obviously it becomes a challenge. And the only thing that they can continue to do is to dialogue with them, is to appeal to their conscience, is to engage them as to why there's the need for them to go through the procedure. But with the Banda issue particularly, let me tell you what happened yesterday coming into today. Now, it's been between the two major political parties in Banda, and Banda is the only constituency in the Bono region that has an NDC MP. Now, the registration process degenerated into a chaotic scene, resulting in the death of that fresh graduate, teacher training graduate. Now, the Regional Security Council, headed by the Regional Minister, Evelyn Amakuni Richardson, they have been trying to ensure that peace returns to the constituency in Banda. And we understand that yesterday she had a meeting, the RECSEC had a meeting with the two main actors, that is Ahmed Adams, the NDC parliamentary candidate and the incumbent MP, and then Joe Dankwa, who will be running on the ticket of the New Patriotic Party. Now, they have issued a communique saying that the two parties have agreed to ensure that they go through the process now, during and after the general election in a peaceful manner, with the promise that they will go by the laid down procedure and advise their followers to ensure that they also abide by the tenets of the game, that is the electoral process. And that is something that is very refreshing to note.
Yes, very refreshing.
I'm sure to bring peace.
Very refreshing and some good news there. Precious, I want you to follow up on this for us so that indeed, as they have said, they will follow the procedures and make sure that there's peace in that region. Let's go back to the central region and also to the Volta region. Kojo Nyako joins us again, and IB Setoji as well. Kojo, let's see if this will work. The running mate of the NDC, Professor Nano Pokuajiman, has been campaigning already. Bring us up to speed on that. Sorry, it didn't work again. Sorry, Kojo Nyako. We still have a terrible connection with the sound. Let's see if Ivy can hear us. Hello, Ivy. Hello, Ivy.
Yeah, hello, Ernest.
Okay, I can hear you now. So
yeah,
you're talking about how parents are worried, but now we know that the Ghana Education says the students can't go home. What is the reaction now?
Oh, well, yes, with that, your children will come back to them. They are home safe with them. And also teachers are also happy. Some teachers are also happy as well because of the happenings on campus. But then the final years that they...
Terrible connection there, forgive us. We'll have a better conversation next week where we'll bring you a wrap of the stories we'll be bringing you for the regions. But as we wrap up on our show this holiday, the Chief Executive of Engineers and Planners, Ibrahim Mahama, has extended a hand of kindness to inmates of some 4 institutions in the northern region, including the Tamale prisons and the Children's Home. He donated 250 bags of rice, 24 cows, 3,000 gallons of cooking oil, 3,000 cans of canned fish, 10 rams, and some undisclosed amounts of money. Northern Regional Correspondent Martina Bugui reports.
Presenting the items on behalf of Mr. Mahama, his aide Rafiq Mahama said they decided to support the prisons because most often people lose sight of the Tamale prisons when donating, therefore their decision to support. He said this is not the first time they are donating to an institution.
I'm here to present these items to our brothers and sisters here. That's the Tamale Central Prisons. We all know what is coming up tomorrow, which is Eid. And it's a period of sacrifice and a period of time that families come together. So we decided to support the inmates here with these items, and also just to tell them that we are solely behind them as they find themselves in confinement. Some of the items to the Tamale orphanage and also to our Muslim brothers and sisters, both the imams and also the various mosques we have in town. And in total, we are donating 250 bags of rice, and also we are donating 3,000 gallons of cooking oil, and we are 3,000 cans of mackerel. And also we are donating 24 cows, and also 10 rams. In addition, we are presenting undisclosed amounts of money to the various box we have in town as well. We decided to come here because there are other places that we've gone to do donations already, not only in Tamale or Accra, but we felt like Tamale is another place that we have to come. So we know sometimes people lose sight of. I mean, supporting our brothers and sisters here, the Tamale Central prisons. And So that's why we find it necessary to support them at this time.
Receiving the donation on behalf of the prison service, Chief Superintendent Oklo Divine said they were overwhelmed by the large quantities of items donated to the service. He said it will help the inmates celebrate the Eid festival.
I'm personally overwhelmed by the large quantities of items being presented to us this morning. Tomorrow is Eid, and the whole atmosphere seemed to be quiet. We're not seeing signs of any celebration. But with these donations, I think our unfortunate brothers and sisters in incarceration over here will also enjoy the Eid celebration. On behalf of the regional commander as well as inmates, I stand to show our appreciation for this kind gesture. We are grateful for this donation, and we thank God for touching the hearts of the engineers and planners who have taken it upon themselves to come and do this donation. Their welfare needs are very essential to us as far as feeding is concerned. And with these items, I think it will go a long way to assist us to improve on their diet for some time.
At the Tamale Children's Home, the central manageress, Maulom Afelite, thanked the team for the support. She said the donation Mr. Mahama had presented contained all the essentials they needed. Madam Maulom said feeding is a challenge for the home, citing food from protein as the main problem.
It is all the things that we need, and we are asking the good Lord to bless him, to let the company work and bring more profits, but not anything negative. Normally, everybody, children are here, drinks and biscuits, rice and oil. But protein aspect, I mean fish, tin fish, meat, chicken, all those things, we buy them. We buy maize. Maize too is in abundance here. But we buy beans, red oil, and sometimes some of the pink oil. Provisions are not forthcoming. If I say provisions, I mean bathing soap, and Dettol, Milo, milk, all those things we buy them. Sometimes too, the other office also support us and buy some for us.
The team also donated to the Ambaria and the Central Mosque in Tamale.
And on that note of a kind gesture, we end today's edition of the show. But just before we go, let's bring you this story. Fish species in Lake Bosontwe falls drastically. A study by the Fisheries Resources Commission has indicated that the biggest man-made lake has had its fish species reduced due to human activities, excessive fishing and bad farming methods by individuals along the lake is also to blame. West Africa's biggest natural lake is also said to be losing its depth and water volume. And now Jima has more in this report.
The name of this water is Lake Bosontwe. We have 22 communities around this lake. The length of the lake is 20 kilometers, 14 miles. And the area of the lake is 16 kilometers, 10 miles. And the deep is 78 meters, which is 234 feet down.
Prince Mensah is one of the teenagers who act as tour guides here. This beauty over the years is gradually losing its beauty and quality. Fish species were once numbering over 10 but had reduced significantly. Fortunately, Tilapia bosomana, an endemic fish species, is one of the few species left in the lake. Senior Basin Officer Abena Dufie Redu Breman says enforcing bylaws on the lake is first step towards protecting it.
There's a day that is set up, like a free day that nobody is supposed to go fishing. But unfortunately, this law is not being adhered to, and communities are fishing every day in the lake. So there's a lot of pressure on the lake. It's the areas that the fish spawn or breed should be left untouched. People are fishing these small fingerlings, and people are also cutting the vegetation where the fish hide and spawn.
Vegetation cover along the lake is being cleared for plantain cultivation. Huge acreage of land across 22 communities around Bosomtwe has been affected. Chemicals used on these farms are washed into the lake, destroying living organisms which are already exposed to excessive sunshine. Asantehene Land Restoration Project is a joint intervention by the Menhia Palace and Oheneba Poku Foundation to reverse the trend. Coordinator Fred Chase-Sapon speaks of an intervention to encourage responsible farming outside the lake's buffer zone.
We clear the land, we leave the bush to dry up and then decompose on the land so that we can cover a wide surface area and then maintain the soil moisture. So we don't do seasonal planting, we can do all year around planting. And then make sure that we limit the use of agrochemicals.
Cessation of farming along the lake will be prioritized under the program. Asantehene Land Restoration Project says it is relying on chiefs in affected communities to plant trees on illegal farms. Amekomhene Nana Edumensa Asare is chairman.
But the people have lived there over the years. That is where they have been farming. So to go and say that we need this portion of land for this purpose, you must appeal to the person's conscience.
Nana Ochima reporting.
And just before we go, we wrap up finally on the show on the Pulse. I want to bring you an update on COVID-19, just so that we don't lose track of what is happening around us. It's very important that we keep ourselves up to date on the cases. So we have 736 new cases. The active cases still quite down, 3,681. The total case count, 35,142. And we know that 175 people have died as a result. But a good number, 31,286 have recovered from coronavirus. Please, coronavirus is real. COVID-19 is all over. And let's make sure that even as we celebrate today, we observe all the protocols in order to keep safe. My name is Ernest Mini. You'll find more stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Let's Talk Showbiz is next with Becky. Stay tuned.